Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm going to remember the late James Earl Jones. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Also, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it's time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. Of course, this is the more of a somber toned episode as we are here to remember the late, wonderful, great James Earl Jones, of course, the voice of Darth Vader, and many other things. And we'll get into his illustrious career in just a little bit here. But before we get into that, I want to chat all things Cloud City gossip with everybody. So, yes, the news that has taken place in the Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent galaxy over the past week. And it wasn't a big week in terms of news drops, but we did have some surprises and content in the books area. So one thing that was planned was the release of Star Wars The High Republic Tears of the Nameless by George Mann, the next story in the High Republic saga. So if you're a fan of that, or frankly, if you're just going through High Republic withdrawals due to the Acolyte news, this is your way to perhaps get back into that or to satiate that need. This is in phase 3 of the High Republic. George Mann wrote one of my favorite stories in the High Republic thus far with what is that called? Eye of Darkness? No. Oh man, this is gonna hurt me. George Mann. uh Star Wars. Of course, I'm looking this up live on the air. Eye of Darkness. I knew I was right. Trust your gut sometimes, Anthony. Golly gee. Anywho, you heard that live here. Sometimes I can't remember things on the spot, and that is okay. Yes, Eye of Darkness is a fantastic story. The start of phase 3 in the novel section of that storytelling area. And now we got another story. I believe this is a young adult story in the High Republic phase 3, Tears of the Nameless. So I'm very excited to check this one out, and hopefully you do as well. Now, for the surprise of this week, we also got a drop of audio story, basically called Padawan's Pride, and it features a story with Anakin and Obi-Wan, a very young Anakin. So this is really like a couple years, maybe even like 2 or 3, 4 years maybe after the events of the Phantom Menace, where this story takes place. And it's an audio story, so you can only really get it on like Audible and other types of places like that. Maybe Spotify has it at this point. Yeah, go check that out if you're into that. I kind of was just dropped out of left field, and I know people were like, oh my goodness, what's this happening here?" But yeah, some prequel content this week for sure on that front, and that is really all the news that we had for this week. Of course, we'll just a heads up to everybody, we will next week be at ICCC in Nashville. So follow along on all of our social media channels, of course, to stay up to date with that content. And believe our episode in about 2 weeks will be some of the recap for that, because I've got a wonderful brand new microphone to do some live audio as I'm walking through the show floor, and to hopefully bring that experience home to you all, similar to what we did for D23. So that is all the news that I had for this week's episode. And on the other side of this break, we will be back with our conversation, discussion, and remembrance of James Earl Jones. Stay tuned. All right, folks, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. And it's time to do our little remembrance here of the actor James Earl Jones, yes, who passed away at the age of 93 just a little bit ago, September 9th, it looks like, based off of what I'm remembering here, and also just confirming via the Lucasfilm website where they have a press release about his passing. Um, just just a sad moment here, because this is a person, especially for us Star Wars fans, and just people that have enjoyed media over the last 50 years. He's definitely held a strong place in that world. Now, of course, at the age of 93, I think we were all expecting this announcement to be made sooner than later. right? It's not like the kind of, for me, I guess, the Carl Weathers example or earlier this year, where at 75, 76, right? That was a bit more of a shock at the time. Now, of course, still to be still in the realm of expectation there. But definitely 93. James Earl Jones lived a long life filled with many different endeavors and activities. His filmography spans a massive amount of things, from not only just Star Wars but The Lion King, um, so Doctor Strangelove and How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, of course. Just so many things that he's had under his belt, and that we'll be forever grateful that we have these under our um, well, or at least they're preserved forever in the art of film and television, so that we can refer to these, and through that no one's ever really gone, right? The famous Luke Skywalker saying, and in The Last Jedi here, which is kind of the lesson that I'm taking from this here, is like, yeah, this guy will always be a part of us. He is the voice of Vader, right? There is no substitute for that, even though many people do really great impersonations of it. But I think with as we saw with Obi-Wan Kenobi, where they were using the AI technology, and they must have had some agreement done of some sorts in order to say that this is okay. And that's how we got him. We're probably going to get, if there are future Star Wars stories that feature Vader in some capacity, they will probably utilize that technology again as they move forward here. But yeah, 93, I mean, it's sad, of course, and I'm sure that much respect and thoughts with his family and those that were most close to him. Um, but truly a wonderful talent, a wonderful voice. Let me just say that, a voice that resonates throughout all time and space. Right? If you were to say probably one thing that is the most iconic thing from Star Wars, many people would, at least in their top three, probably say the voice of Darth Vader, which is James Earl Jones' own voice, right? He's not doing any modulation or really any change to it. If you hear the guy talk on interviews, which I have done extensively over the many years of my life at this point, uh, it's particularly with the Empire of Dreams documentary in that 2004 DVD with the original trilogy special edition at that time, which I watched over and over and over and over and over again. You'll hear him talk very candidly about his role and how he got cast into Star Wars, and how he wasn't really the first choice for the voice of Vader. It was more of like this Orson Welles kind of thought in Lucas's mind, but then he heard the audition tape for James Earl Jones and then decided to go with it there. And I think history has been, rightfully so, changed for the better as a result of it. Um, Right. Even I have this press release up here on my computer, and I just wanted to read, because this is something that he says in the 2004 documentary as well. Uh, George eventually ends up picking a voice that was born in Mississippi, raised in Michigan, and was a stutterer, and that happened to be my voice. That is a quote from James Earl Jones, and that's something that always stuck with me. Right? It's like, out of probably the most unlikely circumstances, this guy becomes the voice of not necessarily of a generation, but of a century, right? This is a voice that carries weight throughout all time and space now, and just something that will always stand out to me is his role as Vader. And I wanted to talk about the various phases of Vader, right? There is the 1977 A New Hope, the very staunch and deliberate Vader in that one, which is, right, the "you are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor, take her away," right? That kind of Vader. And then, of course, there is the Empire Vader, which is a bit more calculated and thoughtful, and how he works, like and a little bit playful too, right? We'd be honored if you could join us. That type of Vader. And of course, delivering that powerful message at the end of that film, the climax of climaxes across all media, right? Can you think of a better ending to a film than perhaps Empire, that leaves you on such a cliffhanger that you're like, I need to see what happens next week. How is this true? Is this true? What's possible? And James Earl Jones was one of the few people that was in the know about about what Lucas was deciding to do here. that Darth Vader was indeed the massive twist, being Luke's father. And people on set didn't know. Mark Hamill knew because they wanted to get the pure reaction. But what David Prowse in the suit says is, "Oh, Obi-Wan, killed your father, or some, like not that I killed your father." Um, and that's it's so powerful that they bring this person in there, and he gets to have this iconic role and to be probably the most iconic line, and probably the most iconically misquoted line across all of time and space as well. um but yeah, this is a true gem of a character in Star Wars. And I did sorry, I got sidetracked there. I wanted to say in Return of the Jedi too, this conflicted character in Return of the Jedi. You don't know the power of the dark side, is one line that comes directly to my head. Obi-Wan once thought as you do, which now we of course know that story from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and of course also Revenge of the Sith, depending on what you want to interpret that as meaning. There is also the probably my favorite Vader line, which is Luke, help me take my mask off, which then reveals the true Return of the Jedi, Anakin Skywalker underneath that, where he gets to look upon his son with his own eyes again. A redeemed Vader gets to celebrate his last moments of life in victory and celebration, and the joy that he once gets to have after all those years of suffering. It's poetic. It's wonderful, and James Earl Jones is certainly a part of that scene in such a dramatic and wonderful way. Now, of course, I wanted to read off some of the big quotes here because, of course, people have been outpouring just not kind words and thoughts and emotions when it comes to the passing of such an iconic voice and character in the Star Wars galaxy. This comes from Kathleen Kennedy herself, the head of Lucasfilm at this point. James Earl Jones is one of the most versatile and talented actors of our time, with an iconic body of work across film, stage, and television. The menacing baritone he brought to Darth Vader will forever be beloved by fans and regarded as one of the great villainous performances in cinema. His commanding presence on screen and warm personality off screen will be greatly missed. Um, excellent quote there from Kathleen Kennedy, really depicting the iconography of James Earl Jones, in my opinion, as she says, this menacing baritone that he brought to Darth Vader is 100% accurate. It's how I would describe it. It's that deep baritone that just resonates and instills fear into the hearts and minds of people when you first are introduced to that character. It's not necessarily just the breathing. The breathing is a great accent to it, and the suit is another great accent to it, but they're nothing without the voice, right? If you watch those tapes of David Prowse, who's the man in the suit for the most part, speaking, delivering lines and all that stuff, it's not the same. It doesn't have the same impact. James Earl Jones certainly makes the character fully fleshed out and whole, and I believe that wholeheartedly. Now, of course, on to George Lucas himself, who is quoted here in this press release. Uh, quote, James was an incredible actor, a most unique voice both in art and spirit. For nearly half a century, he was Darth Vader. But the secret to it all is he was a beautiful human being. He gave depth, sincerity, and meaning to all his roles, amongst the most important being devoted husband to the late Cece and dad to Flynn. James will be missed by so many of us, friends and fans alike. Now, yeah, George takes a different approach here, taking, as a person that is a little bit removed from Lucasfilm and the Star Wars galaxy, and just reflecting on, yeah, he's a dad and a great husband and a great person just off screen. So he's, he will be remembered for Darth Vader, but that wasn't all that was there to him. He was also a wonderful, warm-hearted person, and that's what we should really take away at the end of the day, right? He will forever be enshrined as that, but he's also this the multitudes of personality and feeling that we can be to each other that I think really just gets at the core of what this guy is. And he never, at least from what I can tell, he never took himself too seriously. He knew his iconic role here. I've never heard a bad thing said about the guy. Um, in terms of fan interaction and meet and greets, like he's just very much appreciated his role in big pop culture and society, and particularly these runs of films from the 70s through the mid 90s that I will also highlight later on here. Within Star Wars 2, Vader returns, obviously, as many of us know. But with that, James Earl Jones also got to return. This is something that, just speaking candidly here, I was interested about more than anything when it came to Revenge of the Sith. I have spoken already here how I have spoiled myself to everything in Revenge of the Sith about a year and a half prior to the film coming out, where on a random Google, well, not necessarily random Google, but it was a random thought in my head. I was like, oh, maybe someone's posted the script online of Revenge of the Sith. And through a lot of internet digging over several days, I was able to find pretty much the exact script for Revenge of the Sith many months before the film actually came out. So I knew everything basically that was going to happen almost to the exact detail as it appears on screen in May of 2005. So I knew that Vader was going to be a part of it. That was a part of the marketing, obviously, too. But I knew like lines that he was going to specifically say. And I was curious if they were actually going to bring back the iconic James Earl Jones in order to have this character finish their arc at the time. So then May 9th of 2005, I believe, opening night, I'm there with my mother. And then at the end of the movie, when Anakin completes his journey into becoming Darth Vader, and you see him take his last eyes look as the mask is coming down and descending upon his face and then being locked in there, basically, you hear the breathing start, then you get the iconic scene there. For, in my opinion, I know people like to belittle that scene and hate on it, but I actually love that scene more than anything, where it's him saying, "Where is Padme?" and a James Earl Jones saying Padme, right? It's James Earl Jones in completing the iconic Vader line and showcasing here that these prequel films matter. That's really what it gets down to, it, right? It's like if James Earl Jones is saying Padme, and then speaking like as if Hayden Christensen's in the suit, it's this whole 360 circle coming together here. For all those years, I had to defend these movies and defend my fandom of it to all these different types of people. Just who disregarded it and disrespected me as a person for liking them. Um, that was a big powerful moment for me, was seeing him say like, where is Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right? And then having the no sequence, which I've also really liked too. You hate me all you want for that, or come at me, like I'll defend it to my dying breath. So I've done it for almost 30 years now. Well, I guess maybe not 30, but 20 years now, just about. And I will continue to do it for as long as I breathe on this planet. So to see him come back, Revenge of the Sith, was awesome. He's also come back for many other things in the Star Wars galaxy, including Star Wars Rebels, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and Rise of Skywalker. Also, some aspects of Star Tours he's been involved with as well. So he's definitely always kept his hand on the wheel, so to speak, when it comes to Star Wars and just his involvement with that. But his on-screen work certainly isn't just restricted to Star Wars, and in terms of his iconic roles too. His first movie role was in Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. A fantastic, I can't stress that enough, fantastic film from 1964. You do not want to miss out on that one, just for its place in film history, because it certainly inspired Star Wars and George Lucas in many of his activities. But it's just a great movie overall, and you will not regret sitting down to watch it. Um, he, of course, was in Conan the Barbarian. I think that's a big popular one that people notice him in. Coming to America is a very popular one that people remember him for. I actually have just seen Field of Dreams for the first time this past year, actually, like a couple of weeks ago. I had it on 4K and decided to put it on Screen Sight. I knew I would like it. It just was one of those things that we've talked already on the show about my experience with film and how I wasn't able to watch certain movies. This was kind of another one of those that I was never allowed to watch as a kid, that in my later years now I've decided I'm going to do this and watch that movie. His role in that is powerful, just explaining the simplicity and beauty of baseball. And as a fan of baseball myself for since I was 5, has just been a Wonderful thing to have that. And it's one of the things where I'm like, I'm sad I didn't have this earlier in my life. You know, I wish I had this movie and these stories and these themes for it's like you're like, I miss out on it, right? I wish I could have had them, and maybe who would I be as a person if I had them at the age of 10 or 12 or 9 versus 29. So can't bargain with lost time, but it's the what if. Like, what if I had? Who knows? I still think I turned out to be a pretty good person, but I think the themes and mythology of Field of Dreams is just really spectacular. Hunt for Red October, another wonderful movie. Um, Now here's a device one. I know he's in The Sandlot. I know he's kind of the big bad in a way. Like he's that guy over the hill, behind the fence and all that. That just turns out to be this jolly guy. Uh, actually, don't like the movie. I don't really care for The Sandlot. I know, kind of this millennial Gen Zer. I don't really fit into a specific generation because of where I was born, but and a person that loved baseball too. Just this film doesn't really do it for me at all, and that's fine. I don't expect anyone to want me to like it. I also don't, if you love it, that's great. Go for you. Good for you. Enjoy it. And go to your minor league baseball games and watch them play it on screen. It's fine. I don't care. It's just not for me. But I did enjoy seeing him at the end there and talking about how he has all these memories with all these baseball players for himself growing up throughout the years. Lion King, of course. I think it's probably what many of my generation and beyond would say is their most memorable experience with James Earl Jones being the iconic lion Mufasa, and also probably a part of, again, the most traumatic moment of our childhoods as well, with the passing of Mufasa and how that is animated so eloquently on screen that it just is impacted so many people across time and space again. Reprising that role as well in the 2019 Lion King with Jon Favreau behind the scenes on that one, or behind the camera, I guess. Not necessarily behind the camera. He kind of gets into that in detail in the Disney Gallery series for how it's done. But yeah, brought back for that. I don't know if he's necessarily back for anything in Mufasa, the upcoming film, but you never know. You never know. Oh, apparently he was in a direct-to-video Sandlot too. I didn't know they had something like that. I know he's in Robots. I know that's a very popular one. Oh, it looks like he was in Scary Movie 4. He's definitely had his definitely been around the block a bit. Oh, he did a theatrical on-stage production of Did Our Driving Miss Daisy. Check that out. Looks like his final film role, according to Wikipedia at least, is in the sequel to Coming to America with a number 2 in the America. So glad to see him kind of come back to these iconic roles of his and just bask in the glory of all the work that he's done over the last couple of years. Yeah, it's truly sad to see this guy go. But I'm sure he's in a good place and resting in peace, hopefully. And he lived a very very full long life, and coming from its humble origins, person with a stutter and all that, to them becoming the most iconic voice of all time. I think that's pretty safe to say. It's just sad to lose these giants, these people that are literally legends. You're up in the clouds. There are these big ethereal names, right? I just remember hearing the word James Earl Jones and just knowing that that is a marquee actor, thespian in the world. Just he makes Star Wars what it is. Star Wars is nothing without Vader being the villain that he is, in the iconic role that makes everything so interesting. He is the glue that binds the Skywalker saga together. And without the iconic voice of James Earl Jones, I'm not sure that it would be as successful nor as important in all of our lives as it is today. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, James Earl Jones. You will be missed, but you will be always remembered here at Force Ghost Conversations and across the Star Wars fandom and beyond too. Not just Star Wars fandom, but many other fandoms have always embraced James Earl Jones. And I think just anybody in the pop culture fandom world will always have a spark of remembrance when they think of James Earl Jones and what he meant to all of us, and lives on forever in our hearts and minds. So with that, folks, that is our look and remembrance of James Earl Jones. A little bit deeper dive than what we did last week, which I thank you for listening to that, as I was kind of getting back from my cold and was able to do this full episode without having to edit anything. So kudos to me on that one. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. I got a little special treat for you all with that next one here. I've been excited to do for a while here, but also kind of terrified to do at the same time. So be on the lookout for that as I want to release more information closer to. But until next week, with a brand new episode, we'll be back and all that stuff. So we'll also be at ICC at the same time too. So follow us on all the social media channels: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search for Forest Coast Conversations. We'll be there, so you can keep up to date with all the things that we're doing at the convention in Nashville. So with that, folks, again, thanks again for listening. May the force be with you. Take care.